Your support helps us grow. Hit the subscribe button and join our community today. Your support helps us grow. Hit the subscribe button and join our community today. Have you ever been so desperate that you reached out to your only family member, only to be met with silence? Have you ever felt unimportant, no matter how hard you tried? I used to believe that family was a place to return to, until the day I nearly bled to death while my parents were raising their glasses to celebrate their golden child. Hello, I'm Caleb Hale, 30 years old, a carpenter specializing in handcrafted woodwork. 2 years ago today, a tragedy struck me. That moment made me realize my place in my family. That day, like any other, I was working in my small wood shop in Bitterroot, Montana, a place I had called home for many years. The shop was deep in the dense forest, about 7 miles from my parents' house, close enough to call them if I needed to, but far enough that if something happened, I had no choice but to rely on myself. The rhythmic hum of the saw echoed through the shop, blending with the soft sound of Rusty, my old dog, basking in the sun on the porch. I had always loved this work, the way a rough, unshaped piece of wood could transform into something complete under my hands. It wasn't just a job, it was my passion, my life. But in a single moment, everything changed. The saw slipped, blood gushed like a fountain, staining the wooden floor a deep red. I screamed, my body staggering, my left hand went numb, crimson seeping through my fingers. There was no one here, just me and old Rusty. Without thinking, I tore off my flannel shirt, ripping a piece with my teeth and wrapping it tightly around the wound. The fabric turned red instantly. I tightened it further, pain shooting up my arm, but I had no other choice. I had to stop the bleeding, I had to stay conscious. The wood shop had always been my haven, but now it felt like a trap, locking me inside danger. No one was here except me and Rusty. My hands shook as I fumbled in my pocket for my phone, my blood-slicked fingers slipping as I dialed my parents' number. The phone rang. I gritted my teeth, biting my lip to keep from crying out in pain. Mom, please come now, I had an accident. The saw slipped and cut deep into my left hand. There's so much blood. My voice broke, hoarse and desperate, as soon as she picked up. The moment I told her what had happened, she responded in a light, almost indifferent tone. No urgency, no concern. Don't worry, Caleb, just wait a little bit. Then came the dry, hollow sound of the call ending. I closed my eyes, telling myself they would come, that they would help me stop the bleeding or at least get me to a hospital. But somewhere deep in my mind, the part one always tried to ignore, another fear screamed louder, not the fear of the wound, but the fear of something even more painful. What if they never came? I gritted my teeth, leaning against the wall as a searing pain shot through my arm. 15 minutes had passed. My shop was only 7 miles from their house, less than a 10-minute drive. My vision blurred, and my head spun from the blood loss. With trembling fingers, I redialed my mother's number, but no one answered. Then, suddenly, my phone rang. Noah. I quickly picked up, thinking my brother had heard what happened and could help. But the moment I pressed the phone to my ear, his slurred, drawn-out voice hit me, heavy with the telltale signs of being drunk. Hey, Will, this contract, man, it's amazing. I frowned, my breath shaky. Noah? Silence, then a lazy chuckle. Oh, hey, Caleb, I meant to call Will. Ha. Guess I dialed the wrong number. I narrowed my eyes. Wrong number? What are you even doing? Noah laughed again, his voice filled with the exhilaration of someone who'd drunk way too much. Man, this party is amazing, everyone's celebrating me. You know what Mom and Dad said? They've never been prouder of me than they are right now. Even Uncle Rick brought out the good champagne, haha. Through the phone, I heard my mother's voice. Noah, raise your glass, I want a picture of you with Uncle Rick. Then my father's booming laughter. Our boy finally made it, a real star. I sat there, my entire body ice cold, but nothing felt colder than how they treated me. They hadn't come because they were too busy celebrating Noah. I was on the verge of passing out from blood loss, but to them, that didn't matter. The only thing that mattered today was Noah signing his contract, a moment worthy of a toast, party, cheers, and laughter. And me? It was just a phone call they could put on hold, and whether I lived or died didn't matter to them at all. A few minutes later, my vision blurred further, and my breathing grew heavier. I could feel my heartbeat slowing, my head buzzed, not just from the blood loss, but from a brutal truth that had just struck me like a hammer. Then memories rushed in like a flood, tearing down the walls I had spent years building. Noah was always the center of everything, the family's golden child. He was 3 years younger than me, sharp, charismatic, effortlessly charming, everything I wasn't. Noah thrived in the spotlight, while I worked with my hands, shaping wood in quiet solitude. At school, he was the football team star, the kid teachers admired and friends gravitated toward. I remember the day he won his first high school football trophy. My parents had hung it in the center of the living room, where anyone who walked in would see it. When guests came over, my father would always stand beneath it, beaming with pride as he slapped Noah on the shoulder. "That's my boy, the best player on the team." I had once held that trophy in my hands, running my fingers over its polished metal surface. It was heavy, like something that didn't belong to me. For just a moment, I had wished, just once, that my father would rest his hand on my shoulder like that he would tell someone he was proud of me, too. But before I could hold on to that thought, my mother snatched the trophy from my hands. "Don't touch that, it's Noah's, be careful, you might drop it." She spoke as if my touch alone could shatter Noah's dreams. I never had a shiny trophy like Noah. I never had a round of applause from my parents, and even now, as I sat here bleeding out, teetering between consciousness and oblivion, they still chose Noah, a grand celebration for my brother, toasts, cheers, clinking glasses, all happening just 7 miles away. 7 miles, nothing when they wanted to come, but too far for them to care about me. Rusty's frantic barking pulled me from the haze. His voice rang out like an alarm, urgent, desperate, as if he knew I was slipping past the edge of life and death. Then the workshop door burst open, a familiar voice called out, but it wasn't my father's or mother's. "Caleb, oh my God, what happened to you?" Emma, my neighbor from a few houses down, stormed in like a whirlwind. I forced my eyes open, seeing the shock widen in hers as she took in the sight of me slumped against the wall, my arm wrapped in blood-soaked fabric. I tried to smile, but all that came out was a weak breath. "What are you doing here?" "Rusty," she said quickly, crouching beside me, jaw clenched as she inspected my arm. "He's been barking nonstop for 20 minutes. I thought someone had broken into your shop, so I came to check." Rusty was still growling, but when he saw me open my eyes, he whimpered and gently licked my hand. I felt his warmth, a small, familiar comfort against the biting pain. Emma wrapped another cloth tightly around my wound, so tight that I had to grit my teeth to keep from screaming. "You've lost too much blood, I'm taking you to the hospital now." I gave a weak nod. She pulled me to my feet, steady and sure, like this wasn't the first time she'd saved someone. Rusty stuck close to my legs, his body pressed against me as if he could shield me from whatever came next. The workshop blurred behind us as Emma opened the truck door and helped me into the passenger seat. Rusty leaped into the back, pressing his nose against my wrist, panting with worry. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay conscious as the truck sped down the uneven dirt road. At the hospital, bright white lights made me squint. The doctor spoke to the nurses before they began stitching up my wound. I felt every needle prick my skin, but it was nothing compared to the pain of betrayal. Emma sat beside me, her face still tight with concern. When the doctor left, she leaned in and asked softly, "Are you okay? Do you want me to call your parents?" I let out a dry, hollow laugh. "Don't, I called them when the accident happened. They didn't come, they were too busy throwing a party for Noah." Emma blinked, as if struggling to believe what she had just heard. "You nearly bled to death, and they stayed home?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to, the truth spoke for itself. She leaned back, shaking her head, her expression a mix of disbelief and quiet fury. She said nothing else, but I knew exactly what she was thinking. I looked at Emma, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and bitterness. I had almost died, and the person who pulled me back from the brink wasn't my parents. It was a neighbor, a stranger bound to me by nothing but proximity, who cared more than the people who brought me into this world. The following day, after my wound had stabilized, the doctor pulled up a chair across from me. His voice was calm but serious. "You're lucky, Caleb, the saw didn't hit a major artery, but," he hesitated for a second, carefully choosing his words, "the nerve has been damaged. You might not be able to hold a hammer again." I looked up, my heartbeat faltering. Not be able to hold a hammer? My voice came out hoarse, almost unrecognizable. He nodded. "We'll monitor it, but there's a chance your hand won't regain full dexterity. It'll take time to recover, if it even can." I stopped hearing anything after that. The hum of machines in the hospital room, the footsteps in the hallway, and even Rusty's soft breathing at my feet faded into the background. Not be able to hold a hammer. The workshop was everything I had. It was my life, the only thing I was good at. If I couldn't hold a hammer, how was I supposed to live? I looked down at my hand, wrapped in stark white bandages, trembling, useless. A part of my body, a part of who I was, had been stolen from me in a single moment of carelessness. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the crushing weight in my chest. If I wasn't a carpenter, then who was I? Suddenly, my phone buzzed. I flinched and pulled back into reality. My other hand was still steady enough to pick it up. My father was calling. I blinked, steadying myself. Finally, he was calling. Maybe, just maybe, he would ask if I was okay. Perhaps he would say he was worried about me. I answered, heart clinging to the tiniest thread of hope, but when he spoke, his voice had no concern, just the same cold practicality as always. "Caleb, your mother and I need extra money to help Noah travel for his tournament." I sat frozen, A chill ran down my spine. I didn't answer immediately, my brain needed a moment to process the words. They called, but not because they were worried about me, not to check if I was even alive, they called to ask for money for Noah. My grip tightened around the phone, my breath catching in my throat. Money for his tournament? I repeated, slowly, carefully, because I couldn't contain the anger if I spoke too fast. I almost died, I continued, my voice shaking. You were right there, but you didn't come because you were too busy throwing a party for Noah. You think I don't know? On the other end, my father sighed, annoyed, like I was the one being unreasonable. Don't be dramatic, Caleb, it was just a cut. I closed my eyes as numbness spread through me. Just a cut, his words echoed in my head, loud and sharp. I wanted to briefly throw my phone against the wall, but I didn't. Instead, the call ended. He had hung up before I could say another word, probably frustrated that I hadn't immediately agreed to send him the money. I inhaled slowly, then exhaled. Without hesitation, I opened my banking app, my injured hand trembling as I pressed each button. I had sent them $1,500 monthly for years, believing it was my responsibility as a son, but now I understood, they left me to die, so I no longer needed to be the dutiful son. I scrolled to the automatic transfer set for the first of every month, pressed cancel, and confirmed. It was over with just a single tap, but inside me, this ending felt heavier than anything else. I looked down at my injured hand. Maybe I would never be a carpenter again, I may have to find another way to live. A few days later, I was discharged from the hospital. During my entire stay, Emma took care of me. I owed her for the rest of my life. When I returned to the workshop, I spent my days sprawled on the couch, my bandaged arm still aching with every movement. Rusty curled beside me, occasionally lifting his head to look at me, his brown eyes filled with silent concern. 2 weeks later, my hand had improved significantly. Sitting in the dimly lit workshop, surrounded by scattered wood shavings, I looked down at my injured hand. The once white bandages had turned slightly yellow, a reminder of that deep, fateful cut. Slowly, I picked up a chisel, gripping it tightly with trembling fingers. The feeling was foreign. I felt like a stranger in my workshop for the first time in years. But I couldn't stop. Gritting my teeth, I pressed the chisel against the wood. Pain flared up my arm, protesting every movement, but I ignored it. Physical pain was nothing compared to the sting of being abandoned. Every cut into the wood was a declaration. I don't need them. I carved a small wooden bear, each stroke slower, shakier than before, but still full of life. My hand was weaker, but my heart had never been stronger. A sigh broke the silence. You're as stubborn as ever. I saw Emma standing at the door, arms crossed, her expression a mix of exasperation and something softer. Pity, maybe. You're pushing yourself too soon, she scolded, stepping forward to inspect the wooden figures I had just finished. She picked one up, turning it over in her hands. I shrugged. Better than doing nothing. She didn't argue, but in her eyes, I saw something unexpected, belief. The next day, she took my carvings to the market, $1.50 on the first day. When she returned and placed a handful of crumpled bills in my hand, her voice was excited. People loved them. Someone even asked if you'd be making more. I stared at the money. Not much, but to me, it was proof that I could stand on my own, proof that I didn't need my parents to survive. Rusty jumped onto the couch, pressing his head against my hand as if he understood I was trying. I stroked his soft fur and whispered, "We're going to be okay." My parents never called back, no texts, no check-ins, but I no longer expected anything from them. I had myself, I had Rusty, I had this workshop, and that was all I needed. I thought they would disappear and never look for me again. I was wrong. They came back the following day, just as I was waking up. A loud, relentless pounding echoed through the door. Before I could open the workshop, Rusty sprang up, growling, the same deep, guttural sound he had made yesterday when my parents arrived. A bad feeling settled in my gut. I opened the door, and they were there again, wearing the same scowling expressions, without a hint of remorse. "You can't just cut off the money like that," my father barked, his eyes flashing with rage, as if I had committed some unforgivable offense. "We raised you." At his words, my right fist clenched, and I felt the bandages on my left hand tighten, a harsh reminder of how they had left me alone in my most desperate moment. Slowly, I stood up. My injured arm trembled slightly, but I ignored it. Every word I was about to say was a blade, honed and ready. "You raised me just to abandon me when I was bleeding out." I met his gaze head-on, unwavering. "I was dying, and you were at home celebrating Noah. You ignored my call for help like my life meant nothing." Silence filled the room. My mother lowered her head, mumbling a weak excuse. "Noah needed us more." I laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Needed you for what?" I cut her off, my voice sharp as steel. "To show off some old football trophy, to keep failing while you keep pouring money into him, pretending he's still your golden boy." Nothing, no argument, no defense, just avoidance, eyes shifting away as if the truth was too heavy. All my life, they had put Noah on a pedestal, but when I asked a simple question, why, they had no answer. I could still hear my mother's frantic voice from that phone call, her excitement as Noah raised his glass in celebration while I was bleeding out alone. The truth was clear. I pointed to the door. Get out. My voice was final. A sentence passed. They froze, stunned into silence, but they didn't argue, because they knew they had lost something they had always taken for granted, my tolerance. Without another word, they turned and walked away. The door slammed shut behind them, but their silence spoke louder than anything else. Noah would always be their number one, and me, I was nothing to them. They didn't call and didn't reach out for months, until one morning, exactly a year ago, I was carving a wooden deer when a sharp knock echoed through the workshop. Rusty leaped off the couch, growling. I sighed, setting the chisel down. I already knew who was at the door. I opened it, and just as expected, my parents stood there. They looked tired, but this time they weren't desperate, they had a plan. My father spoke first, his voice firm. Caleb, you need to sell this workshop. I raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. My mother nodded eagerly, launching into an explanation she had rehearsed. Noah has a huge opportunity. He's planning to open a football training academy for young talent. This is a golden investment. If it succeeds, the whole family will benefit. I crossed my arms, shaking my head. How much this time? My mother swallowed. The initial investment is $300,000. If we get in early, we'll hold a major share in Noah's company. Once it takes off, you'll have millions without lifting a finger. I looked at them, unsure whether to laugh or be furious. You want me to sell my workshop, something I spent years building, to gamble on Noah's dream? My father nodded, completely serious. Yes, this is a life-changing opportunity. You waste your time in this rundown shop, but if you invest in Noah, you can quit working and enjoy a comfortable life. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. No. My mother frowned. Caleb, you're being short-sighted. If you listen to us, your future will be completely different. I met their gaze, my expression ice-cold. You want to invest in Noah? Fine, sell your house, that's your property, you have the right to decide, but this workshop, this is my home, I'm not selling. My father's face darkened. Caleb, don't be selfish, the family needs you, you can't turn your back on Noah now. Before I could respond, the door next to mine swung open. Emma stepped out, arms crossed, eyes sharp. She had heard everything. What a brilliant investment plan, she said, smiling coolly. You want Caleb to sell the one thing he has to fund a business run by a guy who's never done anything but burn through family money. My father scowled. This isn't your business. Emma shrugged. I wasn't planning to interfere, but when I hear someone being manipulated into giving up everything for someone else's pipe dream, I can't stay quiet. She stepped forward, facing them head on. For years, what has Caleb done for you? He worked hard, he sent you money every month. Meanwhile, Noah did nothing but live off it, and now that Caleb has stopped, instead of standing on his own, you come crawling back, trying to drain him even further, to the point of taking his entire workshop. My mother's face flushed red. That's not true, we want to help Noah. Help or enable? Emma cut her off, her voice sharp. What has Noah done to deserve $300,000, or is he still just a spoiled manchild who expects his parents to carry him for life? Silence. My father had no response. My mother lowered her gaze, unable to look me in the eye, because they knew Emma was right. I crossed my arms, my voice calm but unwavering. She's right, I'm not selling the workshop, and I suggest you go home before you lose that, too. A long pause. Finally, my father clenched his fists and turned away. My mother hesitated for a second before quietly following. Not a single word left their mouths. For the first time, they understood I would never go back. Emma watched them leave before turning to me, narrowing her eyes. Kid, don't let them come back a fourth time. I smirked. They won't get the chance. Rusty barked, as if he agreed. After our last encounter, I thought they would finally abandon Noah's ridiculous project, but I was wrong. They didn't give up. Couldn't make money the right way? Then borrow it. Couldn't borrow it from me? Then mortgage the house. I didn't hear this from them. I heard it from Emma while I was tidying up the workshop that morning. She walked in and placed 2 cups of coffee on the table, her expression an unfamiliar mix of disapproval and concern. Caleb, there's something you need to know. I raised an eyebrow. What is it? She sighed, tapping her fingers lightly on the table as if choosing her words carefully. Then finally she just said it outright. Your parents mortgaged their house to invest in Noah. I froze. What? They signed the papers with the bank 3 weeks ago, she continued, her voice dropping. They took out a $300,000 loan, the exact amount they asked you for before, and Noah's project failed. I let out a dry chuckle, shaking my head. Of course it failed, it was never going to succeed. And they had never been willing to see the truth. I wasn't surprised. What interested me more was the price they had to pay. I'm guessing the bank is taking the house, I asked, my voice flat. Emma nodded. They've received a foreclosure notice, they'll have to leave if they don't pay the debt within 2 weeks. I nodded, as if it were just another ordinary piece of news. She studied me carefully. Caleb, are you going to help them? A simple question, but I had already made my decision a long time ago. I met her gaze, my voice calm but firm. No. She raised an eyebrow. Maybe she had expected that answer, but the finality in my tone still surprised her. I took a deep breath and set my coffee down. I know this answer might disappoint you because they're my parents, I said, never breaking eye contact. Emma stayed silent, listening. I clenched my left hand slightly, still feeling a dull ache despite it being healed, but the moment they left me to bleed out, I trailed off, squinting out the window, remembering that day when I was shaking, desperate, begging them to come while they raised their glasses to Noah. Then I looked back at Emma, my voice as light as air but heavy as stone. They died to me. Emma was quiet for a few seconds, then finally she sighed and shook her head, but it wasn't disappointment, it was understanding. I don't blame you, she said slowly, I just pity them. They had the best son they could ask for and never knew how to appreciate him. I didn't respond, I only looked down at my hands, the hands that had pulled me back up when the people who should have done it had abandoned me. 2 years have passed, I'm still in my workshop, working day by day, hour by hour. My hands aren't as strong as they used to be, but they can still hold a chisel and carve pieces of wood, which I'm proud of. Rusty is older now, slower, but he remains by my side, as loyal as ever, and Emma, the only person who never abandoned me, still stops by every morning, bringing coffee and sharing the latest news from town. She's the only family I have left. Sometimes, in the late-night hours, when I sit alone in the workshop, the saw silent, the warm yellow light casting shadows on my workbench, I think about them, my parents, Noah. I wonder, are they okay? Are they living well? Do they ever think about me? There have been moments when I've reached for my phone, just one call, just one message. Would that be so hard? But then instinct and reason pull me back. I remember the night I begged them for help while they raised their glasses to celebrate Noah. I remember the times they returned, not to ask how I was, but to ask for money for their golden child. I remember the house they gambled away for Noah, only to lose everything. Some wounds never heal, some things, once lost, can never be restored, so I remain silent. Have I been too cold, or am I simply protecting myself? What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and if you like the story, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share it so more people can hear it. Thank you for watching, see you in the next story.